Hey guys, so earlier this week I was reading in the book of Mark and I came across a story that I've heard probably like 1,000 times, right? And it's about this woman who has internal bleeding for 12 years, touches Jesus' cloak, and now she's healed. As I read it though, there was something that stood out to me that I hadn't really thought about before, and I want to share with you guys and see what your guys' thoughts are on this, alright? So I'm going to be reading Mark 5 verse 24 through 34. A large crowd followed and pressed around him being Jesus. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors, and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Now, often when we hear this story, we're told about the woman who comes on this great faith, this time of need, touches Jesus' cloak and is healed. And that's a great story, and we should keep telling that. But something stood out to me when I read it the first time. There's this new character, we'll say, that stood out. So let me start over real quick, see if you catch it. A large crowd followed and pressed around him. A large crowd. There's a lot of people there. It's not just Jesus, her, and the disciples. There's a lot of people there. Actually, this story, when told in Luke 8, mentions that the crowd pressed around him so tightly that they feared he would be crushed. There are people squished against Jesus. But for some reason, we don't hear about the guy who gets squished into Jesus and suddenly his arthritis, his tinnitus is healed, and his 20/20 vision is returned. We don't hear about them. We hear about the woman who had the faith, the initiative to find Jesus, to reach out, to touch his cloak and be healed. And it made me wonder, where am I in that story? And how often do we find ourselves in the crowd and not being the woman that reaches out? We go to church every week. We are in small group all the time. We listen to Christian radio and Christian music, right? We are around Christian people. We are around Jesus. But we aren't the ones reaching out and touching the cloak. And if you're not the one reaching out and touching the cloak, then you'll never hear the phrase, "Your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." The phrase this woman heard. Now, something else I do want to point out is it mentions in verse 26 that she had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. But instead of getting better, she grew worse. She had tried everything she knew, reached out to many doctors, great care, this says, from many doctors, and had not gotten better. But she came to Jesus and reached out. So I do want to make the point. If you are looking for the joy, the peace, the happiness, and you are not finding it, you are trying everything you can, not finding it, this woman tried to find her peace, her healing, and couldn't find it outside of Jesus. And I'd encourage you, if that's you, you are probably looking in the wrong spot. And you can find that joy, peace, healing, whatever it is, in Jesus. I digress. I want to continue. We need to pursue God. Psalms 9:10 says, "For those who know your name trust in you. For you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you." You have never forsaken those who seek you. If you seek after God, he will not forsake you. He will be there. He will remember you. He will keep you in mind. He will heal you. He is there to bring you peace, right? James 4:8 also says, "Come near to God, and he will come near to you." Another instance of that. If you approach God, he will approach you. He will reveal himself to you. If that's not convincing enough, or kind of what we need to do, that we need to pursue God, one more verse I'd like to bring up, and that's Luke 9:23. And in it, Jesus says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me." 3 words, 3 commands, 3 verbs. Deny themselves. Take up your cross daily. Follow me. These are all things that we have to do to follow God. We have to take the initiative. We have to have the faith to follow God. He has set everything up for us. But we have to deny ourselves, take up our cross, actively choose daily to take up our cross and to follow him. And if we do that, we can know that we are the woman. We have pain. We have suffering. We've tried everything we can. We can touch God and find healing. Now, I'm not saying he's going to heal you of all your physical ailments. I'm not saying that you're immediately going to be able to walk again. But what I will say is he can forgive you of the greatest ailment there is, and that is sin. So think about it. Which crowd, or are you in the crowd, or are you the woman? Are you actively pursuing God, having the faith to know that even though things aren't good right now, if you reach out and keep holding on, he will heal you? Or are you the crowd who's there? You are near God. You are around Jesus. You're there because you love hearing him talk, but you haven't had the faith to reach out and touch him. And if that's you, I'd encourage you to think, how can I become more like that woman? How can I change my life to have the faith to pursue God in a way that I am actively reaching out and seeking him?